There are a lot of fake websites on the internet, claiming to have something you desire. 99% of the time these are fake. But what if I told you there is a way to actually get what you desire? But, you are going to pay for it. Not in monetary terms, but instead in emotional and mental terms. First thing, do you really want the thing you desire? This seems redundant, but the pain you will go through will be terrible and beyond anything you can imagine. Also, remember, the more valuable your desire, the more pain you will go through. If you're religious, you will still be able to go to heaven if you are a good person. You will need a computer you can do coding on, nothing more, nothing less. You will need a key from a friend or a person online. Though if it is a false key, you will be sent to hell for an eternity. I beg you not to use a random key found online. Also, you need a strong pair of sunglasses, as well as a smartphone that is fully charged, and that can receive LTE connections from any major phone companies. Even if you can't use the data on full speed, it will be fine. Put all of these items in your pockets. First step, log onto your computer, then make a file. This is simple, make a website about the thing you desire. Even if it's experiential or material, always say it's free. Include an image of what you want, plus a big download button. Link your key to the big download button. The key is weird. It's not a file, but 6 seemingly random digits. Never use a website builder like Weebly or Wix, or even stolen source code. This is a sign of laziness, and you will never make it to the end. Load it up on your computer in an internet browser. An .pdf file will print after pressing the download button. This is the last chance to turn back. Please, if you are not willing to die for this desire, it's not worth it. It says something on it, you have sought an item of sorts. Please sign this note claiming you will partake in the trail to gain your desire. Print out the .pdf file. It doesn't matter where. Just make sure no one sees the page, as this is seen as bragging, and you won't make it. Do not sign on the front. This is a trap to sell your soul to the devil for an eternity. Sign the back side in the top left instead. Go back to the website you created. At this point, email yourself the .html file you created, and you can access it on your phone. Now, change the text in the download button from download to receive. Press it. You will be in the previous location that you were where you pressed the receive button. Now, walk out, and go outside. You are in hell. Don't worry yet. This is your test. If you're not dead yet, congratulations. You beat out 80% of all of the other participants. Most of their wishes were too vast, as you can't trust people to make rational choices when it comes to getting literally anything they want. Walk to a demon and say, "Hello, I am a traveler on a mission." If he responds, "For what?" strip and run back to the house door. You will see what you want, but don't be fooled, this is not what you want. Use anything in your house to destroy it. Even if it's a girl or boy, kill him or her. Once you have destroyed it, kill yourself. If the demon responds, "Follow me," he will lead you to another house, inside is your loved ones. Kill one, he or she will disappear from the earth once you get back. Then, kill yourself. You should be in a dark room. Your worst fear will be in there too. If it's an animal such as a spider or a snake, let it on you, it will not hurt you, I swear. If it's a human such as a clown or something of the sort, don't pay attention to him or her. If it is not a living thing, you will be experiencing it now, such as the fear of heights. If you can bear around 20 minutes in Earth time of this, it will stop. It will be lit very brightly. Close your eyes immediately. Put on your sunglasses. There will be nothing more. Go onto your phone and open the .html website file to the thing you want. Click on Receive. Or if you prefer, you can go onto YouTube and find true enlightenment to your life. And you can buy anything on the internet, but you can only buy one thing. If you did something else on the internet, still press the Receive on the web page. You will be back in our world. The thing you requested will be in front of you, or if it is something big like a car, it's outside. If it was enlightenment, you don't get anything, but you are at peace in the mind. If you wanted a lover, he or she will start to hang out around you more. Also, the key is useless at this point. Erase it and never share it, unless you want to kill someone. Is there anything bad left to do in order to complete it? No, there is not. You're in reality. I hope you enjoy your new gift, from Satan to you. How well do you know the internet? Until 2 weeks ago, I thought I knew it pretty well. After all, I spend a good chunk of my day browsing Reddit and 4chan, and I'm always up to date with the latest memes and circle jerks. I've been a denizen of the internet since the early days of Fortune City pages and IRC channels, and a regular ever since. Then, about a year ago, somebody introduced me to the shadow web, a sort of secret layer of the internet that you will never find by Googling or looking up message boards. There are no links from the surface web to the shadow web. And no, this isn't the deep net, in case you were thinking about that. Not some website with gore videos of freak accidents. I've seen those. I assure you this is something far more twisted. I never asked what his name was. He was a regular who came to the gas station where I worked as an attendant last year. Every time he came in, he would buy $20 to $50 of Ucash vouchers, which I assumed were for porn subscriptions. I think it was a combination of his beige polo shirts and receding hairline that gave off the creepy vibe of a pervert. One day, he asked for $300 of Ucash vouchers, and I made the mistake of raising the question, what for? Have you ever heard of the shadow web? I remember him asking me casually as he counted $300 from a wad of $20 bills. I hadn't, so I shook my head. Then he looked through his wallet and withdrew a little slip, one about the size of a credit card. If you want to find out, he whispered. He leaned towards me and slid the piece of paper into my chest pocket. I gave him his vouchers, he left, and I never saw him again. Not long after, I left the job to return to school. It wasn't until a couple of weeks ago that I came across the old, yellowy uniform with the piece of paper still in the front pocket. When I opened it up and read its content, I immediately recalled my encounter with the creepy customer. The piece of paper had instructions on how to get to the gateway of the shadow web. There were a lot of steps, some more sophisticated than others. Unfortunately, I was both tech-savvy and curious enough to follow them. The first thing you'll want to know about this shadow web is that you do not want to go there. I've seen plenty of fucked up things on the web, but nothing comes remotely close to the things I saw on the SW. Thinking back, I should have noped the fuck out the instant I saw the front page. I don't know why I hadn't. Maybe something is wrong with me. When I got to the gateway page, which resembles one of those welcome pages that pops up when you use the free Wi-Fi at the airport or at the mall, the first thing I noticed was the word corpse fucking. It was underneath a search field among 30 or so other words which I assumed were the most commonly looked up things on the SW, things like skinning and mutilation. That should have been my cue to X out. There were a lot of other things, too, other than sexual content and graphic gore footage. Things like instructions on how to make DIY roadside bombs. Things like a Craigslist for cannibals and people who wanted to be eaten by cannibals. Things like a marketplace to buy and sell stolen identities, either individually or in bulk. I spent almost an hour reading up on leaked war documents and diplomatic cables on a site called avenge.shweb. The website looked very retro, if you know what I mean. The layout had frames and each frame had its own scroll bar. When I found myself clicking on links without thinking twice, I realized I had become comfortable on the shadow web. Don't ask me how I came across this next website. Curiosity got the better part of me, and I clicked on things I shouldn't have. I'll spare you the actual name of site because I know some of you will make the same mistake that I did, thinking it can't be that bad. It can. When I got there, I noticed the Ucash logo at the bottom of the page, indicating that paid services were available. It was in fact a live webcam show, but you only paid if you wanted to be the director. Viewing was free. Beneath the live feed of a webcam was the login page to a chat room. It prompted me for a screen name when I clicked on the join button, so I entered AskFast like I always do when commenting on Pornhub or X videos. As soon as I got past the login, a torrent of messages flooded the screen. Most of the messages were in English, a few were in Japanese, and I think some were Arabic or Farsi. The number of participants in the chat room fluctuated between 150 to 200 people, but that's only the number of people who bothered entering the chat. I suspect many more were watching anonymously. The majority of legible messages were "start" or "gagogo" or something to that effect. After about a minute, a man with his face hidden behind a hockey mask appeared on the feed. I remember him having dark brown skin and being really skinny. Like, starving Ethiopian skinny. Shortly after that, everyone was set on mute, everyone except for one user by the name of Italian Goat, who I figured was the director of this show. That's when the screaming began. She was blindfolded and tied to a wooden chair with her hands behind her back. A bigger, darker man dragged her by the hair until she sat dead center on my screen. I watched her try to struggle free from the ropes, but she was so tightly fastened that you could see the bruising. God knows how long she had been tied up like that. Finally, the bigger man took the blindfold off, and she stopped screaming. When she looked into the camera, she seemed to realize what was about to happen. She started crying and begging the two men in what I think was Arabic. Then a message popped up on the chat. Italian Goat, lay her sideways on the floor. The director issued his first command. The skinny man saw the message and relayed it to the bigger man in their own language. Italian Goat, kick her in the stomach. The skinny man continued with his translations. Italian Goat, kick her in the face. The screaming got louder and louder. What the fuck was I watching? That was it for me. I reached for my cell phone, ready to dial 911. Italian Goat, stomp on her tits. Italian Goat, tell your friend to kick harder, I paid good money for this. I was in so much shock at this point that I couldn't take my eyes off of the screen. The kicking went on for another 10, 20, 30 seconds. It seemed as if it went on forever. Italian Goat, now slit her throat. When I read that last message, the churning feeling in my guts intensified. No, 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 I kept thinking, somebody stop this. I tried to type into the chat, but the input field was grayed out. The woman cried even louder when she heard the man relay the last request. Italian Goat, wait, no, not yet. The skinny man held one hand up to signal his partner to halt. My breathing returned to normal for a second, thinking the woman was spared. At least for the time being. Then the director continued. Italian goat, take out her eyes first. The skinny man stared directly into the webcam. I couldn't see the entirety of his face, just his eyes and the small patch of skin around each one. In his eyes I searched desperately for the slightest hint of hesitation. Please, put a stop to this, I prayed, but I kept the mouse cursor hovered above the close button in case they did not. And then, the skinny man began typing, and a second screen name popped up on the log. Admin, another $500. My mind froze when I saw the number. $500. This woman was being tortured and possibly killed for a meager sum of $500. I was making as much every other week at the gas station, and I was barely making minimum wage. If I could offer $1,000 to stop this, I would. I would empty out my savings account if it meant saving her life. I would, I swear on my life. I'd pay anything to stop this madness. Italian goat, okay. I quickly shut off the screen before I could see any more. I wish my common sense could have kicked in earlier. I ran out to the yard where I regurgitated about 2 meals worth of vomit. It had been a long time since I've felt this sick from watching something. When I was in junior high, some friends showed me a clip from Rotten.com. It was the one where a man had his skull sliced in half by the rotor blades of a helicopter he was in the midst of repairing. And then, over the years, I've seen many more videos like that one, enough that I don't get the urge to puke in my mouth anymore. But let me tell you this, seeing a live footage of a real person being tortured is stomach-turning on a whole different level. When I was done spitting out the last bits of bile in my mouth, I heard screaming coming from my room. It was then I realized that in my haste to turn the monitor off, I had forgotten to turn the speakers off as well. Her screams got worse and worse, until finally I was able to reach behind the desk and disconnect the speakers from the computer. The silence that followed was unbearable. It was as if by my own hands I had silenced her, killed her. I felt remorse such as I have never felt before. I killed her, I thought to myself again and again. I killed her. The feeling was unreal. I had to find out if she was alive. As I reached over to turn the screen back on, a voice inside my head begged me to stop. I do not want to see what I'm about to see. But before I could stop myself, my hand had already acted. The image on the screen was an image I will never, ever forget. The severed head of the woman sat there straight across from me, both eyes missing from their respective sockets. That face, that warped, misshapen face have haunted me ever since. Even now as I write this, I can feel her hollow eyes glaring at me from behind. I sleep with all the lights on, the TV on, but nothing helps. Right before I shut down the browser and reconfigured the network settings to access the good old regular internet, I remember seeing one last line on the chat line. It is easy for the lost and the outcasts to find solace in technology. When you are lonely, you grab hold of anything that grants you comfort and eases your pain. Robert was such a person. He spent his days on forums and comment sections seeking out validation in his existence. He has never met his closest friends, they exist only as words on a screen. You can find the worst and best of humanity on the web. However, people like Robert rarely seek out the best. They spiral down dark corners looking at things worse than themselves. That is where he met John. Robert did not know much about John other than that he was a cynical person who enjoyed talking about the downfall of society and failings of mankind. He showed Robert images. Pictures of people in pain, or dying. Pictures of monks lighting themselves on fire, of little girls trapped in a flood. They were images meant to elicit a certain type of emotion, despair. Robert and John spoke to each other for nearly a month since the first meeting. Robert became fast friends with John and started to adopt many of his nihilistic views. As John had planned, Robert truly grew tired of his life and humanity around him, and like a predator stalking prey, John carefully waited for the moment to strike. "What if you could escape this reality?" John asked. "That'd be nice," Robert agreed. "All you have to do is agree and I can show you something," John replied. "What are you talking about?" "Whatever, show me," Robert finished. Rob immediately felt a dizzying sensation as the lights went out around him. For a moment the world went black, then his eyes adjusted to the dark. He was still sitting at his keyboard, but the screen had no power along with the computer. He tried switching the computer back on, but it was useless. The desk lamp next to him also failed to turn on. He stumbled around his dark house till he found the front door. He looked outside to find that every house around him was much the same. No lights, no power. The streetlights were out as well. A blackout, he thought to himself. However, he saw no one else. It was cold, and the world seemed to glow lightly with the light of the moon, but he could see no moon or stars. Walking outside, Rob could not escape the feeling of everything being slightly wrong. Walking to his car, he noticed the color seemed slightly off and the body felt cheap. Like a poor imitation of what it should be. The sidewalk, street lamps, and even the windows of the houses and cars all seemed like cheap imitations of the real thing. Like a Chinese knockoff of a whole town. This surreal world only grew odder with the lack of the wind and any noise outside his own footsteps. Rob walked the streets of this imitation world for several hours, or at least what felt like hours, as the passage of time seemed impossible to tell. It wasn't till he saw a light at the end of an empty road did he have a direction. At first, it was simply a glow in the distance, but as he approached he could make out the shape of a monitor. In the middle of the road sat a computer on a desk. The only thing with any power for miles. This world seemed like a dream. Slight imperfections giving away hints that this was not his reality. None more so than the glowing computer screen that sat on a desk in front of him. On the screen was only a basic text program with a line of text blinking, waiting for a response. "Hello, again, Robert." Rob instantly knew it was John. "Where am I?" Rob reached down to the keyboard and typed. "You are still home," John immediately typed back. "However, I suppose that is not what you wanted to hear. Your body is home, your mind is in another reality just like you asked," John continued. "As long as you are not using your body, I will take it in the meantime. Enjoy the peace, Robert," John finished. As the last words appeared on the screen, the power went out. The glow was replaced with darkness. Robert desperately tried to type back and turn on the computer, but it was useless. Once again Rob was left alone in this dark world. He had no sense of time and was unsure how long he had been there. The only thing he could think to do was walk. He tried opening doors to surrounding buildings, but they were sealed shut like they were never meant to be opened. Windows only showed near empty insides with furniture that looked fit for a model house. He kept walking, never feeling tired or hungry, as surely hours must have passed. It was as he walked that he found a small gray building fitted with a red door that looked completely out of place in this world. On the door, a white piece of paper with the words, "Keep Out," in black ink sat. Robert ignored the warning without any hesitation and opened the door, revealing a completely dark room. The horrible smell of rot and death reached out. Still, without hesitation, Rob stepped into the room, and as his eyes adjusted he could see what was making the smell. The building was one impossibly large room, like some sort of warehouse, with concrete floors. Stacked in the center were dead bodies, all in deep stages of decomposition. Skin hung from them like leather. Robert, you should learn to read signs. No need to look on at your predecessors, a voice rang in Robert's head. The smell began to overpower Rob, causing him to flee. As he walked away from the building, the red door slammed shut behind him. Unable to work up the nerve to try the door again, Rob walked away. He found himself wandering endlessly in a daze. He no longer recognized any of the scenery. Architecture and age seemed to change rapidly. Buildings and styles years apart sat next to each other. Yet, it all seemed fake. Like props on a movie set, they could pass for the real thing from afar but fail on close inspection. He could not escape the feeling of being watched as he moved along. Continuing his journey, Robert noticed other red doors like the one he saw before. They did not have any signs on them, but he still hesitated to touch them. His courage from before had faded. However, as time passed and any other options failed to reveal themselves, he decided to try. The closest door was attached to an old stone building that seems fit for a long-lived city like New York or Philadelphia. Slowly opening the door, he saw a deep darkness in what appeared to be a glass door holding it back, but it was not glass but a perfect slice of water. With a touch, Rob could feel water drip onto his skin, but the larger mass refused to fall out the door. With a deep breath, he smelled the nostalgic scent of the sea. Daring not to enter, Robert moved on, looking for another door. Another red door sat attached to a wooden cabin. A building completely out of place, sitting between two brick buildings. Slowly opening it, Rob shielded his eyes as bright sunlight spilled out. Inside the door, a vast savanna spread out before him. A dry golden grass seemed to go on for miles, only broken by the occasional small tree. He had ever only seen such a thing on TV and pictures of Africa. Looking at the gray world behind him and the golden one before him, Robert stepped through the door. The first thing to hit Rob was the oppressive heat. The change was drastic from the cold world behind him. Looking back, the door he stepped through seemed to sit attached to nothing. The world was much different than the one before. If the world before was a dream, this one was more a vivid memory. A sense of odd nostalgia entered Robert's mind. Walking forward into the endless plains, the red door behind him vanished. Despite the heat, he still did not feel thirst, hunger, or exhaustion. He was fascinated by the vastness of the world before him. Besides the vegetation, not another living thing seemed to exist. That was why when he noticed the grass moving in front of him, his eyes focused immediately. Time seemed to slow as a female lion burst out of the grass and sprinted at him at full speed. Rob only had time enough to turn away before it reached him and pounced on him, hugging and grappling onto him with sharp claws. He hit the ground with a hard thud, as his vision went black. A few moments later, Robert was able to open his eyes once more. However, he was unable to move. He did not feel any pain but could hear the sounds of footsteps as the lion moved into his view. It looked into his eyes before opening its jaws and reaching down to bite him in the throat. He awoke once more on the cold streets of the gray world before, gasping for breath. A dark voice laughed in Rob's head once more. "Curiosity can be a dangerous thing, Robert. It killed the cat after all," John said with a laugh. "I am about done on this side. You will be home soon enough. You were a good sport, so perhaps I'll sate your curiosity a bit." The red door before him opened again. This time, a different scene lay before him. A vast village made of sandstone sitting under a bright sun. "I am old, Robert, very old." The door closed again as John spoke, only to open again. This time to a small computer server room. Electronics in black boxes lined the wall while a single computer screen and keyboard sat on a desk at the end. "However, even old things can adapt to the age, Robert. It's time now, I can't stay here for long." The voice of John spoke for the last time. The human body simply can't handle it. The world around Rob started to fade, his vision blurred, it turned black with a familiar dizzying sensation. When light entered his eyes once more, he found himself in a cold wooded area. Rob tried to center himself, but he did not have the energy to stand. He was desperately thirsty, his whole body felt dry. When he finally glanced at his arms, he tried to scream, but his dry throat could not get a sound out. He could see his bones with leathery skin hanging off of them. The last of his energy left him as he collapsed completely to the grass floor. His eyes quickly dried to the point he could no longer move them, not a tear could escape. His body was already a long dead corpse that would never move again. Tap hit the shoulder of Curtis' coat as a single raindrop from the dark cloudy sky made its landing. She knew it was going to rain today. She was not complaining, as she always enjoyed the rain. Leaves crunched beneath her steps as she finally finished walking through the narrow alleyway and made her exit onto the street near the clock tower. The bell chimed tenfold right on cue as Curtis watched a lean man in black enter the cafe. The instructions Curtis had been given were vague, but easy: go to the timeless cafe just before 10 p.m., wait for the target, and then take him out at your own leisure before 11 o'clock. She was no stranger to easy contracts. This world was a cruel one, and in the grim work of assassination easy money was not hard to find. Curtis did not find the job to be too complicated. All assassination requires is common sense, a means of murder, an unsuspecting target, and someone to pay for the deed. To make her job even easier, Curtis gained all of her contracts online through the deep web from those that wanted people in her home city dead. The concept of anonymity among her employers was a bit unsettling to her at first, but she had become used to it. A faceless text under a funny username would give her a location, name, and conditions for the assassination. To make things even easier, she was often paid up front. Sometimes if the contract called for conditions too demanding, her untraceable identity on the dark web allowed her to simply accept the money and not make the kill. However, on nights like this one, Curtis would be given a contract so easy that it would just be pure laziness to not follow through with it. Curtis' target was seated near the window of the cafe where he placed his order. He began reading from a brown book while he waited, and minutes later was brought out a plate containing various breakfast foods. Curtis' phone vibrated, prompting her to reach into her coat pocket. "Is he in the cafe?" the text from her anonymous employer read. "He's enjoying his last meal," she quickly replied. Curtis placed her phone back into her pocket and walked over to the nearby coffee stand, purchased her favorite latte, and sat in the bus stop across from the cafe. She pretended to be browsing the web on her phone as she was able to stealthily observe the man she would soon be killing. After about 20 minutes had passed since his arrival, the man finished his meal and then returned to reading as he sipped his coffee in unorganized intervals. Curtis walked over to the nearest trash can, tossed her empty cup, and made her way back to her seat. She watched him finish up and pay the waitress as she wondered what this guy had done to make someone want to kill him. As the man walked out the cafe door, Curtis checked her phone again. "It's been over half an hour. Is he dead yet?" the text message from her employer read. She quickly replied to the text with an "about to be" as she watched the man with the corner of her eye. The man pulled his hood over his head, checked his watch, and began slowly walking down the street after sliding his hands into his coat pockets. Surdis waited and watched as the target walked and put a bit of distance between them. Surdis thought to herself about how easy this would be as she took her first step forward and maintained a pace slow enough to not be noticed, yet would not allow the target out of her sights. Her phone vibrated. "Better kill him soon," she read as she noticed the time was 10:46. After a while of walking through the near desolate street, he made a quick turn into an alleyway. Perfect, a subtle smile formed on her lips. However, Surdis turned into the alleyway only to watch her target disappearing around another corner. She quickened her pace. The rain became heavier. She couldn't lose him, the payout was too great for such an easy target. As she reached the corner and focused her eyes down the narrow space, she swore under her breath when he was nowhere to be seen. How the hell? Surdis couldn't believe it. No way did he already walk all the way down the alleyway. Unless he had been running. Surdis began jogging down the alley. Her jog growing into more of a sprint as she came to the realization that the target may have been onto her. Damn it, damn it, damn it, she cursed herself for being so arrogant. Surdis turned the next corner, venturing deeper and deeper into the nearly lightless alleyways. She could find no traces. The alley was silent enough for her to hear the vibration of her phone this time. She slid her hand into her pocket and lifted up the device. Too late. Without warning, a sudden pressure struck Surdis in the back. The woman cried out in agony as the pressure transitioned into a sharp pain. She felt the blade exit her back. Just as she felt the blood begin to pour, the pistol hidden in her sleeve slid into her hand as she quickly spun around to face her attacker. Her firing arm was caught as she met the frigid red eyes of her masked assailant. The now familiar sharp sensation pierced the side of her abdomen. Though his face was covered, she could feel the masked figure staring directly into her eyes without remorse. Surdis dropped to her knees, the rain puddle beneath her now gathering a deep red. As she looked up at the shaded silhouette, she noticed something. The clothes, the hood. This was him. This was her target. You made this all too easy. I'm disappointed, his icy voice given a slight echo from beneath his mask. He tossed a cell phone in front of her, the screen revealing that she had been directed to walk right into this. Surdis reached for the gun she had dropped only to feel the crushing sensation of the masked figure's boot coming down hard on her wrist, the loud crunch and sweltering pain hinting it to now be broken. You didn't think you could accept a payment and just walk away, did you? He continued crushing her wrist, his boot stepping down harder and mangling it even further. What more to expect from such an amateur, his gloved fist clenching. Surdis screamed briefly before being silenced by knuckles to her jaw. Guess it all caught up to you. Guess you let your guard down. He stepped off of her now shattered wrist. As the blood filled her mouth, Surdis had to know. WH. What's going on? The poor girl managed to mutter out. They hired me. I hired you. Now I stand before a dead woman, he spoke as she regretted her conceit. Her eyes followed a passing brown leaf from the autumn night before focusing on the assassin's blade, the edges dripping with her very own blood. The bell chimed as the distant clock tower struck 11 p.m., her hour of exodus and the last sound she would ever hear.